So I grew up in the summers going to a log cabin in Wisconsin. It was on the Solon Springs River. It was on the St. Croix River by a town called Solon Springs in Wisconsin. And this was the deep, dark woods. And 5 kids, my parents, the log cabin was built in the 1800s. And it was before living off the grid was kind of like a thing. So we had no running water. We had no electricity. And to see our neighbors, it was a long hike through the woods. Something that my dad would do was he stripped a log of some bark and put it in the crux of the tree. And then we had to balance up the tree, and there's a $5 bill at the top that if we got to the top, and so 5 kids had bloody feet trying to get up there. We were wiping out, but that's the kind of stuff we did to have fun. And the worst time of the night was when Dad would come into my bedroom and blow out the lantern. And I'd just be like, oh my gosh, because the cabin was so dark. But the best time of the night was my mom and Dad would get 5 of us kids in their little jammies before bed, pack us into the car, and we'd go down our long driveway to the dirt road, and we'd look for wildlife. Sometimes we'd see bear that come right up to the car. We'd see deer. We'd see porcupine. And every night, every single night, we'd get to the most darkest spot, and the car would all of a sudden turn off, the lights would go off, and Dad would say, "Kids, we've run out of gas." And we'd be like, "Oh my gosh, Mom, Dad!" And then they'd laugh, and we would go home. They did that every night. We fell for it every single night. But one night, we were on our way home, just about ready to go to sleep, and the car rolled to a stop just about before our driveway, and Dad's like, "I ran out of gas." We're like, oh my gosh. And Dad turns to Mom and was like, "No, Mare, seriously, I've run out of gas." And I remember getting out of the car. Now, I think of my dad. My dad was the adventure outdoors person, right? So for him, it was no big deal. But for my mom, she's got 5 kids. They're in their jammies. They're barefoot. And we have to walk down our driveway, which was, in my memory, 2 miles long. In reality, it was still like a quarter mile or half mile long, right? It was the track that you all know in this industry with the grass growing up the middle. And how bad of an experience it could have been if my mom had been like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. But instead, I remember walking down those roads, and it's pitch black. There's no cell phones. We had no flashlights, because my dad was one of those dads that was like, "Kids, you don't need a flashlight. Learn to see, let your eyes adjust, feel your way through nature, just be present." So we had no flashlights. So we're walking in the pitch black, and my mom looks down to me and she's like, "Hey, Erica, can you feel the cold mud through your feet, through your toes? Put your toes in the cold mud. Can you feel that?" And I remember so well that feeling of that cold mud that some of you might have had, walking down a path. And then my dad saying, "Hey, kids, have your eyes adjusted to the woods, to the light. Can you see? Can you hear anything?" And it really was one of those key points in my life that made, I don't know what you're... You distracted me. It's one of those key points in my life that really made me connect with nature. It could have been a bad experience. Instead, the impressiveness of the dark and the cool, mud through my toes, and this experience really kind of brought me to where I think one of many experiences that brought me to where I am today here, working with land protection and wanting to connect people with land and with nature. So, and these are stories that you might be saying, like, why did we start the seminar with a story? And that's because stories are what connect us, and there's stories like this around a campfire that connect us and engage us. And today we're going to be talking about visual storytelling with a purpose. So how you can engage your audience. Some of you just went to that last seminar, that the communicating clearly about water, and you learned that brains evolved to prefer stories. Stories are about transformation. Your brain lights up. And the kind of atmosphere that we get with storytelling is what we engage with our audiences. But we have to do it with a purpose, and we have to do it strategically. And that's what we're going to learn today. So I also wanted to say that we also started this a lot of times with visual storytelling. I've been a producer for many years. The story can get lost, right? It can get lost in stuff because there are a lot of important things to talk about. We have a lot of messages to get across. So the story can get lost, or it can get overthought. It can get too complicated. And so we want to go through this process with you to show how to make it easier. So welcome to our campfire. Here we are. You've got a trail bar, you've got some snacks, you've got a journal. Comfy, it's cozy, and so we're going to take you through our journey that we did with the Minnesota Land Trust and the Northern Waters Land Trust to give you some good tactics to make your own stories. Okay? I'm Erica Gilsdorf, the unprofessional photo here, and I'm the producer with LB Video Productions. We're based in Detroit Lakes, but we work all over the U.S. and internationally. Behind, in the back, is Raina Zima. She's our director, videographer, editor, but she's also in the video about to see the voiceover. She doesn't do that as her thing, but she's a good voiceover person. Okay, and next we have...
I'm Sarah Sullivan. I'm a communications and marketing manager for the Minnesota Land Trust.
I'm Elizabeth Mbucham. I'm the Director of Development and Educational Outreach for Northern Waters Land Trust.
And I am Holly Lee from Leighton Engage. Welcome.
Okay, so Elizabeth, you want to come up and talk about the objectives?
All right. Well, today, Erica, as she mentioned, is going to walk you through visual storytelling and how to communicate with people in a way to move them to action. And then we're going to go over a case study, which is where Sarah and I will talk about how our two land trusts partnered together to add video into our outreach campaign in 2024. We'll talk about why we did it, how we did it, and the results of adding video in. And then Holly will talk about digital marketing and ways that you can reach people through multimedia channels. Oh, and last but not least, how you can do this yourself. So we'll walk through some steps on things you can do yourself, where to identify when it's best to partner on projects. And then, of course, we've created a landing page special for this session where we'll have the slide deck on here for you, and we have additional resources available to help you with a video project, such as a checklist and a sponsorship guide.
All right, so let's begin. Okay, so creating our campfire story, like we said, visual storytelling with a purpose. Okay, so first we are going to show you a video. And I'd like you to pay attention to this, which we hope you would be engaged anyway, but we're going to dissect this video that we did with the Minnesota Land Trust and the Northern Waters Land Trust about two sisters landowners on Pancake Lake. So let's play this video.
The outdoors defines Minnesota. It can inspire us, rejuvenate us, and connect us.
In the early evening, Grandpa and I would sit out on a bench. He would start pointing out the birds, and then he'd talk about how much they ate, what they ate. That was one of the fun memories that it carried through the rest of my life with birds. And that's what I ended up doing, is working with birds my whole career.
And that is the power that the outdoors can have on us. So when Jane and Polly inherited their grandparents' land, they had some decisions to make.
We were watching around here as all of the development happened on the different lakes in the area, and we thought, well, Grandpa and Grandma, that wasn't what they liked. So we wanted to find a way that we could do something to protect the land.
And because they're not making new land, the decisions we make today will be Minnesota tomorrow.
Over 70% of the land in Minnesota is privately held land. So in order to protect the land, protect the water, we need to work with private landowners to be good stewards, especially around these priority lakes in northern Minnesota.
Whether you are a landowner or someone who wants to protect the natural places of Minnesota, support for the Minnesota Land Trust helps us all. For Jane and Polly, they worked with the Minnesota Land Trust to put their grandparents' land into a conservation easement.
After we have a conservation easement set, it doesn't stop us from being able to hike in the woods, going fishing, or bird watching, or hunting, or any of those activities. We get to do all of that. and still be able to leave the land in a conservation state.
The delight of knowing that it's now protected, it makes you tingle, kind of all over, because it's safety for everything around us.
Protecting cold water lakes is critical to protecting some of Minnesotans' icons. The loon, the walleye, these depend on cold water lakes where cisco fish, which are a small bait fish that they feed on, can survive. In the face of climate change and development pressure, these lakes stand the risk to no longer being able to support these fish populations.
It's never too late to protect and restore the places you love. Leaving a legacy with the help of the Minnesota Land Trust is leaving a legacy for wildlife, your family, and your community.
Through our program, we can pay landowners to protect the land, and the whole process is free of cost thanks to the outdoor heritage funding that we have available by the state of Minnesota. Please contact the Minnesota Land Trust for more information. We look forward to working with you to protect our lands and waters for generations to enjoy.
So let's get right into it. So we're going to talk about, there's 3 phases of production. There's pre-production. That's what we're going to talk about first, who, what, and where. Then there's production, how are you going to do it? Then post-production, how you're going to edit it. So in my section, we're going to talk about those 3 phases first. So first of all, with who. You want to think about who is your audience. First of all, who's at your campfire? Who do you already have? And who is it that you want to reach? Many times we tend to focus on who we already have on our campfire because that's most comfortable. But who are those people we want to reach around our greater campfire? And that's how it's going to determine your approach, your style, your tone, your language. So sometimes we can get too much into jargon, or we can get too much into a formality language that isn't familiar with other people. How you can test that is show it to other people. Show it to your family, show it to friends who aren't in your industry. Who should tell your story? So who are you going to have tell your story? In this case, and in our other videos with these land trusts, for this series, we've done landowners. They're people that are landowners. They're relatable. They're authentic. They talk from the heart. Those are people that felt we could tell the story the best. We also put in a Minnesota Land Trust staff person to give the expertise. So we've got both ends covered. So the other thing, the next spot we're going to talk about is where are people that you want to reach to come to your campfire, right? And so maybe there are events and fundraisers. You've got social networks, your website, print and digital media. So my tip number 1 was remember your audience. Always remember your audience. Tip number 2 is multi-purpose content. So even though how you're going to make your content in the end is in post, this is when you think about it. What am I going to do with all of this time and effort and money that I'm putting into this project to get the most bang for my buck? So you can see the first screen. We had it at a fundraising event. That was great. The Minnesota Land Trust used it for there. We also, for our 2 land trusts we worked with, the Minnesota Land Trust and Northern Waters Land Trust, there's social media. So you see the different platforms that we've used in different content. What is your message and what is your story? So storytelling with a purpose. So we've kind of combined these into 3 categories: feel, know, and do. Feel is how you're going to engage with your audiences. Know is your message. And what do you want them to do? So it's really important to remember those 3 things when you're putting together your project. So the biggest thing is, when we were talking about giving this presentation, and we're talking and working with land trusts, is simplifying complex messaging. We all have a lot of good stuff we want to share, and we all want to get the most bang for our buck, so we think we should pack it all in. And so, first of all, remember your audience. An audience tend to have shorter attention spans. They can't absorb all this information coming at them, right? So you want to know where they're going to see it. Social media is shorter content. If you're going for a PBS thing, you're going to have longer content. Know where they're going to see it. Fundraisers, man, you might have like 2 minutes for attention span before they're, starting to visit again. I always want to say avoid preaching to the choir. A lot of times when I've worked with nonprofit organizations and businesses, they start preaching to the choir. We all know what that means. They start forgetting who their audience is again, and they start talking to people in their own fold. So you want to avoid that. Zero in on the main message. We're going to have an exercise with that. Zero in on the main message. You can't have everything for everybody, and that's hard to do, but we'll show you some tactics on how to do that. In other words, you don't want to cram it all in, okay? And then entertain. When I was first starting out in video production work, this producer who had been in the industry for a long time said, kept saying, Erica, we got to entertain. But I was like, but this is so important. And he's like, yeah, but we still have to keep people engaged. And you can engage people through beautiful photography, through a good story. But the main thing is continue to engage with your audiences. A couple tactics is limit talking heads. A talking head is, you've all seen it where somebody just talks on camera, right? And that can be fine for some strategies. For example, we have some informational videos with the Land Trust, and that's just get to the point, give the information, right? That's all we want. But for this kind of video, we wanted to engage with them. So we put B-roll, footage, beautiful, wildlife, that kind of stuff over, okay? And then remember, show, don't tell. So an example would be in this practice that we're going to do. These two sisters were big into fishing, right? That was part of their land legacy. But we decided we didn't have time to go down every avenue. So to get the fishing component, you saw in the intro, we just show them reeling the fish, right? I mean, the fishing rod. So visually, we told them, oh, yeah, fishing. That's part, oh, I love fishing. You know what I mean? So you don't always have to tell everybody everything. Let them absorb it, okay? And then I love my tip 3, shorter is always better. If you love it, have somebody look at it. And when they start to check their phone, that's like, ooh, that's a 2-minute mark. Better, cut this back. Shorter is always better. Okay, so here's a little practice. So when we were working on this project, we've got so many things we could have covered. I mean, history. We could have shown lots of historic pictures of the farm back from the grandfather's day. We could have gone to the fishing, like I said. We could have talked about, the pollinator area. We could have gone more deep dive into the protection of cold water lakes. And our goal was to get a 3-minute to 4-minute video because our platform was primarily social media channels. So we can't go through all this, right? So then you go down. And this is what we did. We start cutting down some stuff. Now, doesn't mean that it's cut out, doesn't mean we didn't do it. So like fishing, we show the fishing rod. The experience growing up, she talks about that. We show the bench. We allude to that, right? It doesn't mean you have to cut it out. It just means you touch on it a little bit. And in some cases, you do have to cut it out. But I categorize it into these feel, know, and do things because now, you have to remember, too, what your project is and who your audience is, like we keep talking about. Because if your audience are like decision makers, let's say, and you've got 3 minutes at a city council meeting to present a video, they're not about the feel cozy stuff, right? You're going to get right after the, no, this is what happens, this is land is threatened, this is what we need to do about it. In this case, our audience are landowners. We want to connect with them. We want to engage with them. So that's why we have a lot of the feel category. And then you saw Rude come in, and he talked about the importance of landowner stewardship, how land is threatened, the protection of cold water lakes, protection of Cisco fish that protect, and there's the feel-good thing again, Minnesota's icons, loon and walleye. Everybody in Minnesota loves those, right? And then we go back to feeling good. This is how I can still enjoy my land, but also addressing one of those top concerns of, can I still use my land? And then, of course, the do, protect your land, and contact us. Here's a couple tactics, because we hear this all the time, but it's also important. And it is. So here's just 3 quick tactics. 1, use voiceover to say it quicker. So, for example, for Jane and Polly, they worked with the Minnesota Land Trust to put their grandparents' land into a conservation easement. That was much shorter than what we had in the interview hearing Jane or Polly talk about that. Okay, so we were able to knock some time off our video. You can also coach them on like a short statement, prep them. Talk to your interviewers before and say, we're going to need some long, we want you to talk freely, but we're going to need some short statements too, because this is just a 3-minute video. And so then at the location, after they've talked and they're feeling a little cozier, we said, hey, you know what? Polly, what is it? What really drives you? And she's like, oh, just the delight of knowing that it's now protected. It makes you tingle all over because it's safety for everything around us. And I'm like, oh, that's the golden nugget. You know what I mean? That's the thing. And as you can see, it made into all the marketing materials because that's when you got them a little loosened up, but then she said it. So those are the moments that you look for that are going to engage and connect with your audience. Okay, then I attended this great webinar, and it was with the Center for Public Interest and Communication at the University of Florida. And I was so happy to hear this because it reflected how I feel. So for long-term, I looked into the study a little bit more last night. For long-term success, for long-term change, use these emotions as more often: humor, awe, pride, and hope. Now, if you look in our video with the two sisters, there's awe with, the beautiful scenery, the drone shot, the robin, there's pride. They have pride in their land. They have pride in what they've done. And there's hope. There's hope that they're going to stop development, right? And therefore, maybe you can too if you watch this video. And invoke these emotions sparingly: sadness, anger, and fear. Sadness, they said, the results said that it's short-term results. For example, you see the dog, commercial. You want to donate to the dog. You donate to the dog because you want to feel better right away. But next time you see that, you might be like, yeah, I already donated to them. I'm good. I don't have to watch that sad video anymore, right? And then anger is typically used to get a group of people to act collectively, get the picket fence, show up at a rally kind of thing. We're angry collectively. And then fear is a good attention getter, but it's also, you have the risk of the freeze, flight, or flee syndrome. So, and this is where I most agree, because in all the world right now, we are really overwhelmed, I think, with a lot of challenges. And I personally am like maxed out. So when I see other things, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't take anymore. So going back to that feel, know, and do thing, my old style of videography that when I first started, because I thought that's the most impactful, people got to know how bad stuff is. I would do the feel good, like, oh, isn't this, for example, what I would have done with this story was I would have had, isn't this pretty? It's all beautiful. It's all beautiful. And then, wah, wah, look at all the development. It's all sad. This is terrible, but this is what you can do. Well, the tone right now is that it's like overwhelming. It's too much. We see too much. So I loved hearing this research project that said, focus on these emotions, because that's what I need. And it's nice to see that that's what the studies show works the best for long-term change. Okay, so remember, we talked about who, where, and what determines the how. So who, where, and what's your pre-production, and how are you going to do it? Remember, you want to engage and entertain, you want to teach, and you want to empower and inspire to act. So we're going to dissect our video real quickly here. So our campfire story, how we told a story. So in planning, I learned this when I worked on a project with Mitsubishi. They called it bite, snack, and meal size content. And as you saw at the beginning, that's what we had, right? Now it's proportional. So remember, in this series, our meal size is that 3.5-minute video. That's our meal. So then our snack becomes the 30-second Instagram or social media reel, and the bite is the photo or the 15-second, which you're going to see examples of that, okay? Now, if you're doing a 1.5-hour documentary, that's your meal, and now our 3-minute thing would probably be your snack or your bite, okay? So it's proportional. So, and then remember to use all different kinds of mediums. So just because it's video doesn't mean you can only use video. So in our video, we are not wildlife photographers. That would take a huge budget to sit out there and try and get that robin to land in that nest, right? So we use stock footage, or you can also, which I've done in videos, you get the help of local photographers, wildlife photographers. Then you get local people engaged, and you show relevant photography by people they recognize, and that really sets it home too, right? So you can use videos, photos, and stock. Scripting up there. Scripting in a video like this does not mean you're going to say this and you're going to say this and they script it out. In fact, the more people practice, the less authentic it feels. So we try and keep it light and not really prep them a lot with questions. So, but scripting gives you a guideline of how you're going to set the story up. And in pre-production, you've talked to them before, so you get a sense of what the story is and where you're going. So that when you show up, when you start having money on the table, you're ready to tell this story, okay? So shooting. So while we're there, a lot of this is for you doing it yourself, because if you work with a production company, they'll probably do this for you. But thinking for yourself when you're shooting your own videos. Coaching. So example of coaching is the two sisters sitting on the dock with their feet dangling in. So I was like, hey, Jane and Paula, do you ever sit on the dock? And they're like, oh, all the time. I'm like, hey, could you do that for us? So there became a shot. That's coaching them to do something, right? Scouting. Scouting is when you can show up before, and if you're doing this yourself or with the production company, you're going to save yourself money, because you're going to say, hey, we like this picnic bench, we like this dock, we like this shot over here, and you save, so you get a sense of the area that you're going to want to film. And then staging. Staging is to avoid that talking head situation. You want to get the more footage you can in a flowing pattern, right? Because you want time to breathe in your videos and to experience. So if you look at our example of staging, we show the sisters walking down from this angle with their dog. Then we show them, coming this way. And then we show her taking a photo over the shoulder. And then we show her close up with the thing she's taking a photo of. So that's like a sequence. That's a staging thing. We didn't just catch them like taking a random photo. We're like, hey, you said you like to take photos. Can we pretend like you're taking a photo? Okay? So just saying that that's okay to do, right? It's something that they do. You're not making them do something that they wouldn't normally do. And then we get down to editing. And in this session, we're not talking about the deep, dark dive of editing, but I just want to I want to encourage you to know that when you start the beginning, you have to know how you're going to end it. So many organizations I work with, they don't know who's going to edit it. And the longer it sits on the shelf, the longer it's never going to happen, right? And if you don't have a plan with your script and your project, you're going to have a ton of footage that nobody wants to wade through, right? So if you have a script, then you can get somebody to edit it, and it can be much more efficient. And remember, you're going to be able to save money that way. Editing is also another expensive part of the project. The more you can do on the front end, the more you're going to save money on the end. So remember, tip 4, know who, what, where, and how before filming. Okay, let's go to the next one. So some key takeaways. Keep it simple. Start with what you have. If you only have your phone, if you only have a camera back in the closet, start with it. Experiment. Have fun. So many people get so nervous about making it just right, just perfect, right? Just have fun with it. Remember to prepare. We've already gone through that a lot. That's key. It's going to save you money. It's going to save you time. And then remember those components. Connect through storytelling. Feel, know, and do. And remember who your audience is. How much feel you're going to put in there so that you don't also just lose your audience. You want to keep them engaged and connected. Okay. And so I'm going to transfer this over next. And before I go, because they're going to shove me off stage, there was a lot of people that raised their hands with fundraising. And I want to just encourage you that you've seen the QR code, it's on your thing, that there are resources on there. So I've got my production checklist on there that you can use. And I've also got, we've got a sponsor request. So I've got money from different organizations, companies like Mitsubishi, Volkswagen, and I would love to help you. So use that, get an idea of what's worked. So anyway, that's some information for you that's free to use. And we're at the booth. If you'd love to talk to us, I'd love to hear about your projects.
Okay, this is a case study, the tale of two land trusts, Minnesota Land Trust and Northern Waters Land Trust. So Minnesota Land Trust in our partnership specializes in conservation easements, and they work across the entire state of Minnesota. Northern Waters Land Trust is a smaller regional land trust working in north central Minnesota, and we specialize in land acquisitions for conservation purposes. And in our partnership, we work together in the Mississippi Headwaters region to protect healthy watersheds. And we have collaborated on outreach efforts with landowners for over 10 years. So this is a bit about what we did with this outreach effort in 2024. In the center of this, you see a direct mailer, and this is what we've done in years past, so this was consistent, and we continued to do the same thing. We had a letter that we sent out to landowners with priority properties in our protection area, and we also included a flyer. But you can see on this flyer, there's that photo of the two sisters, and this was directing people to a new landing page, which we created just for the campaign this year. So that was a new component to our outreach efforts, and this people would receive this mailer in there, and then they could go to that landing page, and at the top of the landing page was that 3-minute video you just watched, so they could watch the whole video. In addition to that, we had the shorter videos Erica mentioned, the 15-second and 30-second videos that showed online, like on streaming TV and on the internet for people to watch, as well as that we could show on social media. And then we also had the display ads, which were still ads that came up for online users to see. And then through all of these, we could track things and track how people had watched them and click through to our landing page. So the reason why we added video in 2024 is because we wanted to have more impactful storytelling to really engage with people, to increase our messaging, and to increase message repetition. I'm sure everybody here, especially those fundraisers, has heard the 7 touches, right? It takes at least 7 touches for people to hear a message in different ways from different sources before they'll actually be moved to take an action. So our goal was to increase that message repetition and to reach people through different channels, and so they could hear it again and again, and to diversify those channels. And then we wanted to have cohesive branding. So as you saw on the previous slide, everything kind of had a similar look. So when people were seeing it on different platforms, they would recognize it, and they would see it again and again, and it could drive them to that landing page where that would look the same as what they were seeing online. We have a little stat here on the bottom, because some people I work with love numbers. 91% of internet users in the US watch online videos every single week. So this is about reaching people where they are. People are online, they're watching videos online, so we're trying to meet them where they're at. So some of our campaign goals and objectives with this was one, just to increase brand visibility and recognition overall, and to increase awareness about the land protection options available to landowners and the available grant funding that we had to help them realize their conservation goals and help them protect their family property. Our objectives with this focused on building our project queue, just looking at how many properties we've had landowners apply saying, I want to protect my land. So we have that queue of projects waiting for protection. And our goal was to get at least 20 projects into that queue, which was an increase from what we'd had in the past. And we wanted to increase our message frequency, as I mentioned earlier, to at least 7 times. And then just to grow our overall email list so that people are getting those email notices and our e-newsletters. So the how we did this, well, we put on our hikers, and then we set some goals, as I just mentioned, and then we had to figure out the path forward. So for both of our land trusts, this was totally new to us. We hadn't done a video project before, and for Sarah and I, there were a lot of learning curves in the process. We had to learn the terminology, we had to learn timelines, we had to learn a lot of things every step of the way. So we had to set goals, we had to kind of figure out a path along the way, and then we had to gather our resources and identify and secure funding to be able to do a project. And then we had to assess our internal capacity. I'm sure you, like us, where everybody's pretty much at capacity all the time. So it's like, how can you take on a new and additional project in addition to everything else? And then trying to figure out where we need partners, like what can we not do ourselves? Where do we need to get help? Who could best help us with that? And just identifying and securing those partners where we need them. And then once we had all of that in place, it was figuring out when and how to actually implement it. And I'll admit there were lots and lots and lots of little pivots and tweaks and things along the way, so it was not a clear, direct path forward at all. But it was fun. Keep work fun, that's what I always say. So the first thing we had to do with this, since it was our first time doing it, and this would probably hold true in future campaigns as well, but it was particularly important for us was to test our messaging and to see what resonates with people and how they're reacting to the messaging that they're seeing and hearing. So we embarked on a 3-month campaign. And each month we had a different theme. So we had a different video, we had a different banner or display ad like you're seeing here. And so we had consistent messaging on that landing page. We swapped out the videos at the top. So whatever people were seeing online, if they clicked through and went to the landing page, that was the video, the full length video that they would see on the landing page and could watch. So each month we wanted to have that cohesive look across all platforms. And through this messaging, we tested, as you can see here, just a beautiful landscape view of a protected area. We have the 2 sisters that you saw the video of who protected their family property with an easement. And then we had a wildlife photo. This is the iconic loon. Of course, Minnesotans love their loons. But what we found with this is that people love people. And the ones with the people, with the 2 sisters in it, got better reactions from everybody. They watched the videos through to the end more. They clicked through on those more. We just had a better response rate. So you can see down here we had a 15% higher click-through rate compared to the landscape and a 12.8% higher click-through rate compared to the wildlife photo. So this holds true, we've learned across industries, and that people just like to see people. So if you really want to get engagement, you have to show people interacting with nature. And now, since I'm not the numbers person, I'm going to hand it off to someone who is.
No, I'm not the numbers person either. That person, I guess, didn't come today. But the numbers were important, right? So for us, this was, I mean, we kind of refer to this internally as like our pilot project. So we kind of did this project to sort of, I guess, prove the use case and prove if this was something that would be successful for us and potentially, you know, something we'd want to replicate, especially at the Minnesota Land Trust, in other regions, other parts of the state, because this was just really up in the northern part of the state. So, you know, the proof's in the pudding. That's the language. So this was sort of our report out. Elizabeth referenced our goals and objectives earlier. The first one there, 466% increase year over year in terms of the projects that we have in the queue. So while we didn't hit that, I think we set a aggressive but achievable 20 projects as like this would be great. Like we'd feel great if we hit this, but honestly, we were pretty happy with 17 also. And it was important for us to go back and get the numbers on the previous year so that we could do that compare and contrast. And if you are embarking on a project like this at your organization, would recommend that you go back as you're able, figure out what metrics you have tracked in the past and what you can track going forward so you can do this sort of apples to apples comparison. We also tracked some of these other quantifiable measures, and it looks great on the slide, right? To see like 528% increase, 1,170% increase in shoreline feet. So imagine if you're a board member or you're trying to make the case to your organization that like video is effective, we need this, to move the needle for us. Having these kinds of numbers is really helpful in making that case. So that's one of the reasons we went ahead and invested the time to go back and track some of these other measurable pieces of data. And we also saw an increase in project quality, 32%. So it's not just the numbers, or it's not just quantity, it's quality too. And that's kind of an important distinction. Quality of the pieces of land, essentially, the parcels that were coming in the door, because we were able to do the level of targeting that we wanted to. The other kind of note about this slide is that this was reporting immediately after the campaign, essentially. This was like the next month after we were done. So we all know that conservation easements, permanent land protection, is a pretty high consideration decision. It's not something people enter into lightly. It's not something you see the first commercial for and you're like doing it, calling. It does usually take repetition. So we anticipate that even in the coming months, we may continue to get more more outreach, more emails, more people submitting those applications. All right, a few more numbers. Again, kind of proving the case here, and going back to our objectives and goals, we wanted to increase brand visibility and increase message frequency. So you can see, kind of keeping in mind that 7 times multiplier. But we saw about twice as many people got to view our digital content compared with just the direct outreach mailer. So again, kind of going back to comparing and contrasting the year where it's just direct mail versus the year where we're layering in that digital piece, we were able to reach a lot more people, and we were able to reach people more frequently. So we also drove almost 100% increase in website visitors year over year, and saw a dramatic increase in email signups, even though that wasn't our top goal. It was a nice to have. All right, and another way that we sort of measured value was in this evergreen content and this sort of new skill set. So when we were thinking about doing this project, you're making that financial investment in this project and what you're getting back in return. There's 17 projects in the door, but there's also this evergreen content. And we were intentional about that when we were planning this project. If we're going to make the investment in this, we want to make sure that we can continue to use these videos. We want to be able to repurpose them. Erica touched on it. Holly's going to touch on it some more. We want to use these in a lot of different places, and we want them to be able to stand the test of time and be able to be used for at least, a few years at least. So, we certainly didn't put anything in there that referenced a calendar date or anything like that. We want to make sure that we can continue to leverage this content. So, and then Elizabeth also mentioned the new skill set. Part of this that isn't really shown on the slides is, we have documentation now. We have a checklist. We have a process for reaching out to landowners and for doing these types of projects. So there's a lot of documentation and other internal stuff that went along with this that we can now replicate, and which we are actually replicating in other parts of the state. And the little number on the bottom, we talk about different ways of valuing, that your work and what you're doing. So basically we calculated that it was essentially $16 per acre was sort of the campaign investment. So with all of those acres that came into our queue, it amounted to us paying $16 per acre for this campaign. So just one way to think about, is it worth it for your organization? What if you could pay $16 per acre? Would that be an investment that's worth it? Some of the challenges that we experienced, sticking with our metaphor, these are the trail washouts and the places we had to hike backwards and find our way again. So, just a few things here that maybe you can avoid if you're doing one of these projects, or maybe you can't. I know some of these things we knew were out there and we still ran into them. Being that it was a new thing for both of us, this video production and promotion experience, it was, like I said, new process, new terminology, and then we also kind of grappled with the seasonality of it all. For us, while we try to look ahead, and plan ahead and, plan the newsletter that's coming out and plan those campaigns like the next quarter, a lot of times it just doesn't work out very well that way. A lot of times you're scrambling, especially if you're in a smaller organization. But this really forced us to plan ahead and stick to it, because we did this campaign as a spring campaign, so just this last spring. That meant that we had to be out shooting at properties pretty much the previous fall. We weren't doing winter shoots at that point. So it took a lot of planning ahead and preparing and dealing with what that means in your area. So yeah, dealing with weather, dealing with landowner availability, and that's just a lot of factors that are outside of your control, and you just have to learn to roll with it and trust your partners that they know what they're doing, which they did. The capacity piece, and I don't need to bang that one home too much, but luckily we're blessed with budget. That wasn't as much of an issue for us, but bandwidth certainly. There's 20 things to do in a day. You only have time to do 5 of them, and how you prioritize it. And that was certainly the case for us as well. There were things that just came up in this process, not having done it before, that we didn't anticipate, or they took longer than we thought they might. So, but I will just say, I think we saw the numbers, and for us it was worth it to make that investment of time and to deprioritize some other things for now. I mean, we saw how important video is. It has been for a while. I would say if you're not doing video and you can, make it a priority, because like video is here and now, and that's where the people are, and you need to meet the people where they are. And the technology as well. So between 4 organizations, we were trying to share assets, we were sharing photos, sharing spreadsheets, that kind of stuff. We battled like SharePoint and Google and Dropbox and then like some of the legacy systems, right? So like on your checklist of doing these types of projects, make sure you know who is managing your website. If it's you, make sure you have the passwords and can get in. Make sure you can do that kind of support, your Google Tag Manager, those types of things. You need to have those accesses and have a plan for dealing with it. And then here are our key takeaways for our section. Again, time commitment. So on the investment side, it is a time commitment. It's an investment, but it can definitely be worth it. Having that well-defined scope up front, documenting those things, having a plan, like knowing where you're going to use this content, who you're talking to, that will, it might help you save some money, but it'll help you stay in scope. It's really easy on these projects to get really excited, especially when you see the footage and you start to get excited about it because you're hearing these stories, and it's hard to leave stuff on the cutting room floor. Like we went through that process of, hey, we got to cut 2 minutes out of this thing. Like, what are you going to cut? And it comes down to that. So documenting up front, like, what's the purpose of this video? Who am I talking to? What are the priorities? Kind of helps make those decisions easier as you go. And then the partnerships, they yield dividends. They take time to invest. You are investing in your time, especially if you're partnering with like an agency, a videographer, that kind of thing. It takes time. You're educating them and they're educating you. You have to just build that into the process. But the partnerships really definitely yield a better product in the end. I certainly couldn't have produced these videos the way with the quality and with the results we got myself, or probably even just the two of us, certainly. So I was very happy that we invested in our partnerships as Land Trust and with our agency partner.
Yeah, and the other thing is create a good landing page. Again, time. It takes time to do that, but it's worthwhile because we continue to have that up, and we'll have that up into the foreseeable future for landowners, to drive landowners to that page with a lot of different information on it. In addition, we had a Q&A that we offer, a virtual webinar, so landowners can get some of their questions answered, and that they can register through that landing page. And then the cohesive messaging across all your platforms, and that mix of still photos and video content. We continued with our traditional communication channels that we've had. We added in these other forms of video and other channels to reach people. So we had both what we've done in the past, and then this was an additional thing that we put in there. And then just experiment. Try different things, learn along the way, make it fun, keep it creative, but just like when we tested the messaging, you got to figure out your audience, what's really working for them and what wording, all you fundraisers out there, the little nuances in the language in your appeal letters can make a big difference. So it's the same with the videos and stuff too. So, and just know your audience and be very targeted. Our landowner mailing went out to about 2,500 landowners who had priority properties, and then we did an expanded digital outreach to 5,000 landowners. So it was the same 2,500 plus their neighbors to reach a broader audience to that. So we were able to do that without without a huge increase in budget for that paper mailing. So I think that's all I have for this, and we're going to hand it off then to Holly, who's going to talk about those distribution tactics.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for being here today. My name is Holly Lee, and I am one of the strategists who had the honor to work with the Minnesota Land Trust and Northern Waters Land Trust on this campaign. And so today I'm going to be talking to you about what do we do with the video after, right? I'm sure a lot of you have video that you've shot on your phones. You probably have them in your hands right now on your phone and say, what do I do with this? And so I'm going to go over some of those things for you today. So we're going to talk about maximizing your video investment in reach with the various distribution tactics and audience targeting. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how to utilize your video on various channels. So a couple ways you can do this. You can do this yourself. I know I've talked to you a lot over the last couple days, and people have a small team and they need to be scrappy and they're in the DIY mode, and that's great. So when you're doing it yourself, utilize video on organic social media. Obviously, that's kind of number one where we think to put things, right? So put that in any of your social media feeds. Paid social, that's also something that you can do yourself. Put a little bit of money behind it, get some ads out there, and target people who are not already following your page to get a larger audience. E-newsletters. E-newsletters can be boring. People don't like to read anymore. Throw a video in there, make it a little bit more exciting. And then obviously your website. I feel like a lot of people, well, I'm going to make this and I'm going to put it on my website. Well, that's great, but it's not Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will not come. You need to have the outreach. You need to put it in front of people so they will come and visit your site and learn more about what you have to offer. So Erica touched on this in the beginning in the bite, snack, and meal-sized content. That 3-minute video at the beginning was definitely the meal. That was the meat of our content. And so now a bite-sized example would be an 8 to 10 second social media reel or TikTok. I don't know about you guys, but the span of time that I want to watching a video on TikTok, if something's going on over 10 seconds, I'm skipping it. So, I mean, you want to have 8 to 10 seconds. Get people engaged, get them excited, get them really quick, right? Pre-roll. I'm going to go into it a little bit more in a few slides what pre-roll is, but pre-roll would be cut to 15 seconds. Streaming TV, everybody in here knows what a TV commercial is. 30-second ads would be a snack size. And then your website and your YouTube channel, put it on content that's about 2 to 4 minutes. And a tip here that I'm going to mention is to make sure to take still photos. We're talking about video today, but really we talked a lot about the landing page and about the print mailings as well. You want to make sure that when you're doing your video shoot, you're getting photography as well, so you can have that consistency and cohesiveness throughout your campaign. All right, so where did we utilize the video in our campaign that we're talking about today? So the Minnesota Land Trust and Northern Waters Land Trust utilized the video on their website, e-newsletter. On the direct mail piece, they actually had a QR code that linked to the video. And then, of course, on their socials, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And then where did we come in? So when you can partner with a strategic partner like Leighton Engage, we're able to get your video content out there in different ways. And that how we did it for this particular campaign was through pre-roll video and streaming TV. And again, I'll describe those more in a moment here. I also wanted to mention display. Now, Elizabeth touched on this earlier when we were looking at the people on the dock and when we were comparing the loons to the landscape. Display is also something that we used for digital marketing to help increase frequency in front of our audience. So I'll talk about that a little more, but I did want to mention it because it was a piece of the campaign, even though it wasn't a video product. So, Holly, what is pre-roll video? So, by definition, pre-roll video is a commercial that plays for 15, 30, or 60 seconds prior to the start of a selected video on a mobile device, tablet, or desktop computer. So what does that mean? Okay, so let's say it's turning to fall, we want to go look for a good soup recipe online, we're going to go to Google and we find a soup recipe, we're going to click on it. Let's say it takes us to tasteofhome.com. We're going to watch a video and see how they made that soup. Well, anybody know what's going to happen next? You're going to have to watch an ad. And so that's where we were able to place these ads for the land trusts, was in front of their targeted audience across various websites on the web. The reason that we utilize video, and it's not just pre-roll, but increases brand recall and favorability because the combination of sight, sound, and motion just makes it easier to remember. I mean, I could probably sit up here and rattle off 10 jingles off the top of my head because they're so memorable having that audio component. Also advanced targeting. I'm going to talk in a little bit about the targeting that we specifically used for this campaign, but we're able to get in front of the audience of people that need to hear your message. It's not a broad reach, we're just going to let everybody know. We're going to utilize our dollars as best as we can and make sure we're getting in front of the people that we need to get into a conservation easement. We used a 15-second ad for this. As you can see, 371% above average click-through rate. So the amount of people who click on the 15-second ads is much better than if you were to do a longer video, like a 30 or a 60. It also drives intent to purchase, or in this case, take action. They're really powerful when you include that feel, know, and do that we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. So here is our 15-second.
We were watching around as all of the development happened. We wanted to find a way to protect the land.
The delight of knowing that it's now protected. It's safety for everything around us.
So you can see there, everything is very cohesive. It was just chopped down to a nice 15-second. Now, what is streaming TV? So, streaming TV, by definition, is viewing live or on-demand content through a smart TV, puck, stick, dongle, gaming console, laptop, tablets, and other mobile devices connected directly to programming or streaming sites. So let's say you're going to go search for a movie and you can play it free on Pluto. And you're going to watch that, and in order for you to be able to consume that streaming movie for free, it has to be ad supported. So we're able to buy that inventory on those streaming services to show our content. And so that was one of the ways that we marketed this campaign for the land trust, using a 30-second video. Now, you guys will probably recall from the pre-roll, typically when you're on a website, there's that little skip button. And so what's nice about streaming TV is it's typically non-skippable content. So people are going to watch the entire 30 seconds of the content. So that's one of the benefits of streaming over pre-roll. What's nice also about streaming is there's typically fewer ad spots. So you're not competing with 9 ad spots in a break, more like 2 or 3. Again, what's cool about streaming TV is it's also advanced targeting. So you're not buying cable. You're not buying Dr. Phil or Wheel of Fortune. You're saying, I want to get in front of this person because they've made donations to environmental causes in the past, and we're going to show up in their living room. How cool is that? And then obviously, you're going to increase brand recall when you utilize streaming TV. Here is our 30-second commercial.
We were watching around here as all of the development happened on the different lakes in the area. We thought, well, Grandpa and Grandma, that wasn't what they liked. We wanted to find a way that we could do something to protect the land.
The delight of knowing that it's now protected. It's safety for everything around us.
Funding is available to private landowners to help protect your land. What legacy will you leave?
And you'll notice on that one the QR code. Has anybody ever scanned the QR code on a television commercial? I know I did during the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and then that was the only thing that showed up. QR code is something that we put on a lot of streaming TV ads because streaming TV ads are typically not clickable. So it's the one thing that you're losing. You get the completion of the ad, but it's not clickable like a pre-roll. So we can add a QR code there to try to get to them to go through. Now I'm going to talk about display ads. So a display ad is a graphic advertisement on various screens across the internet. Display ads reach a targeted audience at any time on any device. I'm sure all of you recognize display ads. It's essentially like a billboard, and it's just a little snippet of information. What's nice about display is it's a really great complementary tactic to video because by utilizing the same graphic design, we're able to increase frequency and get that brand in front of them again and again and again, and in a less expensive way. And then also, allow them the ability to click on the creative and learn more by visiting the landing page. So they're very highly targeted, and it's really a great thing to do to pair with your video if you can. What's really cool about it is, has anybody here, show of hands, visited a website and then mysteriously you see ads for that website all the time? We can do that really creepy, cool stuff, but we use it for good, not evil. So you nurture leads because people who may visit your website might not have acted at the time, or maybe they got distracted. We're all really busy. So display ads can work by retargeting those people and getting in front of them again and again. Audience targeting. So based on the content that people are consuming online, what they're clicking on, sites they're visiting, their basic demographics, their spending history, and more, we are able to identify and target individuals who are more relevant to our campaign. So I don't know about you guys, but if you've ever grabbed your friend's phone or your spouse's phone and you're scrolling through it, you probably recognize that the ads are completely different than what you would see on your own phone. It's all because we click on different content, we read different blogs, we watch different news articles, and we're different people. We're, different ages. We live in different geographies. And so all of that, those things that you do online are connected to your device. And then that's how we're able to target the people who are going to be the most relevant for our content. So for this campaign in particular, we were targeting people within a certain geography over the ages of 45, people who are hunting and fishing enthusiasts, environment and wildlife donors. How cool is that? People who raise their hand to fundraising. We can target people who have donated before. Environmental and wildlife conservationists, farmers, charitable givers, outdoor enthusiasts, and device ID address match. What's really cool, our devices know where we live. If you ever grabbed your phone and it says 15 minutes to work, that's because, and then 15 minutes home. It knows where you live. We know where your devices are. And so we can take the actual physical addresses that we used in the direct mail campaign and put them into an audience group for targeting and say, we want to get in front of those people on their digital devices as well. So it's super cool. It really increases the frequency, because as she was talking about, this is a high consideration product. And it's not something that seeing one mailer is going to really change their mind. We need to get in front of them again and again and again, and we can do that with advanced targeting. The next thing I want to talk about is getting enough frequency for your spend. So I had someone come up to the booth and they said, how much? How much is it to get in front of my people? Well, would you like to get in front of 1,000 people one time? Or would you like to get in front of 100 people 10 times? Would you rather tell somebody your message one time, or would you rather them hear it 10 times? So that's really going to be where your budget consideration comes in. So if you think about your geography, if we're talking about rural Minnesota, or if we're talking about the Twin Cities, there's a bigger population there. So even a 35-mile radius of a city is going to be different, whether it's in a more rural area or a more metropolitan area. So I encourage you to find a partner. I mean, if it's me, that's fine. That's going to do the research for you to ensure you're going to get enough frequency against that audience. You don't want to water down your campaign. You don't want to spend $3,000 and it's just blanketed and people saw it one time. You want to make sure you get enough frequency and people are seeing it enough so that they actually act. Now, people are going to ask, how much does this cost? Our minimums for video is about $1,200 per month. With this campaign, we did a 3-month campaign with the Land Trust, and they spent just under $10,000 on the video distribution for a 3-month campaign, and that was grant funded. So key takeaways from what I have to talk about today: utilize video to its full extent. You hire people to make quality video, or even if you just take it on your phone, your work and your time is an investment, so use it all over the place. Put it on your website, put it on your socials, put it on your stories, and then work with a partner to help get that out in front of a targeted audience as well. Plan your video utilization. Write down, I'm going to use this on Facebook, I'm going to use this on Instagram, I'm going to use this on TikTok, I'm going to use it on my website. Make sure all of those things are documented. So when you're on your video shoot, you know all of the clips and different snippets and things that you need to get in order to be able to utilize it across all those channels. And be scrappy. That's the one thing we say at Leighton Engage a lot, is just be scrappy, because there's so many times we just don't have the budget to do what we want to, but there are a lot of ways that you can do it yourself. And so be scrappy, use your phone, grab your phone, pull up some YouTube videos, talk to people like us and how we did it, and just do the best you can with the resources that you have. And if you are able to partner with somebody, we'd love it for it to be us. We have a booth right outside here. If you take a left out, we're right on top of the stairs. We'd love to talk to you a little bit more about how we can help you get your message out there.
Just going back to our learning objectives today, and hopefully we covered everything we said we would. Talking about using stories to reach people, and using video to reach people's hearts and make things memorable, and learning from our case study and our campaign and why we did this, how we did it. A lot of learning things along the way to reach more people and increase our project queues. And then understanding the video distribution. If you were like me, there's a lot of vocabulary in there that was probably new. That's why we provided all this for you later. Otherwise, everybody would be writing it all down. And then, of course, for you to be able to do this yourself, to have all these resources available, as Erica and Holly both said, there's plenty of things you can do yourself. There's times when you do need to partner. We partner with people on just about everything we do. Partnerships just strengthen your work. They make it a lot easier, and it just really pays off in the end. So it's worth the investment for partnerships. And then we have on our landing page, which you have the QR code to, just like a checklist for videos. We have a detailed white paper about the process that the land trusts went through, and different things to take into consideration and what we learned. And what else? Oh yeah, the sponsorship. There's a template on there for you to solicit sponsorship to help with funding. We were fortunate that we had grant funds available to us that we could use for this, but not everybody has that immediately available. So funding is always an issue, and where are you going to get the funds for something? So sponsorship may be another option for you on that. And last but not least, questions. Do we have any questions? Yes.
I have two questions, actually. The first one would be that if we want to get into video, and we've been using our phones currently, but we want to step it up, I'm interested in how to incorporate the audio portion and how to do voiceovers. I recognize this is not the place to get that information, but could you recommend a location where we could go to kind of self-learn some of the basics? That was the first question. Self-learn.
I think that's that's actually a Raina question. But yeah, I think a lot of that would be like YouTube, Google YouTube. What do you think? You'll see some instructors and tutorials, and I've gone through a few of them to be like, oh, what's this? But it's pretty easy just to search and be specific on your search and watch a short video. But talk to me at the booth, because then I can give you, I got to think about this a little bit. But most of what I've done is just YouTube, Google it, and take courses that you can Google, online courses. Yeah.
And then I have one other question, and it was that you had talked about the 7 touches, but then you also mentioned about how you intend on using this content for hopefully the next year or two. So my question was, is there a time frame in which you feel those 7 touches should take place in order to be most effective?
Okay. Well, 7 touches is generally a minimum to get people to take an action. You know, that's like our minimum goal. And For this particular campaign, we did a 3-month campaign because of our grant funding cycles. So we have a certain time of the year where we're actively soliciting landowners to apply to protect their land to get in on that grant funding cycle. But we do talk with landowners and accept applications year-round, but they may fall into the next funding cycle. So with this, we have that landing page up. As Sarah mentioned, we have like evergreen content, like things that we can continue to use, and we'll continue to reach out to people. So it wasn't like a one and done, because there are undoubtedly many people who received the mailer, who saw the ads, and it might be a year or two from now, they might come and say, oh, you know, I've talked with my family, we've had time to think about it, and now we want to learn more. You know, some people will reach out right away, but a lot of people need a lot of time to really think about it. So those 7 touches hopefully were reached within that 3-month campaign, but then we'll have ongoing where we continue to reach people, and especially with our increased email signups, they'll receive our e-newsletters and things. So we'll continue to reach them through our normal channels as well throughout the year, and then hopefully more people will come around. So as we mentioned earlier, we anticipate to have more people roll in over time, but it'll be harder to quantify that because it's not coming in immediately following, this campaign. Like each month we were able to look at how many people visited the website, how many people clicked on an ad, and we could track those ads that month. But there is that ongoing impact that isn't quite as easy to track, if that answers your question. 7 to 1,000 touches. Wait, can I say something really quick? In the back, we have Raina, who is the voice on the video. Have you ever wondered about who's the voice? And then we also have Ruud. He's making a cameo appearance here. He's our information guy, our program manager. He was also in the video. Anyway, other questions? You have your hand up? Yes, you.
I'd love to hear more about these grants.
So we're really fortunate in the state of Minnesota. The grants that we use are through the Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment. So kind of an anomaly, but Minnesotans actually voted to tax themselves and add an amendment to our state constitution to put money into funds to protect our land and water, and also for the arts. So it's Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment, and we specifically have those state grant funds through what's called the Outdoor Heritage Fund. And so every year we apply and we use that to do these land protection conservation easements and land acquisitions for conservation. And part of that is community outreach to those landowners. So there was some funding available for that.
Some of the targeting for the videos too kind of goes to that because some of the targeting for the videos goes to that too, because some of the grants are for specific it's a water, it's clean water here. Somewhere else it might be grasslands. So each grant is a little different and goes to specific habitat or a region. So that is also part of our strategic targeting for our videos, is wanting to make sure that we're leveraging those grant funds to get in front of the right people, and we're not just kind of broadcasting it out there for people that it's just not relevant for, or who wouldn't never qualify for the easement.
So yeah, one of the things with this is we had to check and see if this would fit within those grant funds and the requirements, because we hadn't done that before. Another question? Yeah? Oh, green hat.
He can go first, he's ahead.
So I'm wondering if this was a unique situation where you're sort of giving money away to some people, and in cases where you're doing more development outreach, what's the response rate for those types of asks when you're targeting people?
Targeting people for fundraising? I think that's a Holly question.
I don't have anything on the top of my mind, any results I can give you on the top of my mind. All I can say is that we do have access to targeting for people who make particular donations, and we can be more specific on if it's an environmental donation or something else. So I would feel confident that you would be able to do a targeted digital campaign for fundraising. And then there's the man in the blue shirt.
I also have a strategic targeting question, but this might be for both Holly and Land Trust. When I look at the audience identifiers for this, which was a legacy campaign fundamentally, I noticed that one of the audience identifiers was age 45 and up, which struck me as younger than I would have defaulted to. Can you talk to me about your thinking there?
Yes. The thinking there strategically is succession planning, and that adult children may be having conversations with their older parents, who's land going to, what's happening once mom and dad are gone. And so also the adult children who are 45 and older might be a little more digitally savvy. They might be seeing these messages and bringing these messages to their parents who might not be online. They might not be seeing these messages. They might have gotten the direct mailer though. So that was the...
Quick follow-up question. When those conversations come to you, is it more the older generation or the successor generation? Just out of curiosity.
It's a rude question.
Did you hear that?
I'd say it's mostly the older generation, but what you often see is that, especially if there is kind of a succession question, children are involved in there as well. So it's often like a broader conversation. But it'll generally, in my experience, it's the landowner, generally the older generation, that would be contacting us.
Lady in the front.
This would be for Holly and Erica. Does the video just live on your website and everyone goes there, or is it on YouTube? Like, where's the best place to house your video?
In multiple places, absolutely. So just make sure that when you're putting it on your website, make sure that your web developer and anybody putting it on YouTube is adding good descriptions so it's easily found in search. But you absolutely want to put it in multiple places.
YouTube is a search engine. So YouTube's
Yep.
the second biggest search engine behind Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you get it on YouTube and you get that good description, like if you go to the Minnesota Land Trust YouTube, if you go to the Minnesota Land Trust YouTube channel and you look at the description for Pancake Lake, there's a whole description, a little bit about our organization, contact information, and all that, because that all gets indexed by search engines. So if somebody is typing in keywords or looking for anything related to our content or our work in Minnesota, that'll come up organically for them.
The specific videos in the ads, they play right there live. You aren't directed until you click. I think this man in the blue hat.
It's a quick question or a two-part question. So you're tracking, you have a landing page, right? So if someone goes to your landing page, they can access your videos, your website, all of your social media, but vice versa as well. So if I went and watched a YouTube video, you're tracking that data on your landing page. Is it two-part that way?
No, YouTube has their own analytics. That's the word I want. Thank you. So I can't. I think on YouTube I can see like how many people viewed a video. I can see how many people played a video. I don't know if I can see the watch length. I don't know if that even shows up for a free YouTube. But you want the video to be in a few places. The place where you're gonna be able to measure more is going to be on your website. Now you could do a paid account through like Vimeo. If you do paid video hosting, you get access to those analytics. You can see a lot more what's right there in the video.
And Elizabeth just mentioned too, if you use a trackable QR code, then you can see how many scans there were on that. One thing that we do at Leighton Engage is we meet with our clients and we go through all of the reporting. So throughout the campaign, the team was able to see on a monthly basis how it was performing, who was clicking on what the completion rate was, and really watching all those KPIs throughout the campaign.
And we do use UTM tracking parameters for especially like going from print to digital, so that we can track. So like the flyer that people got in the mail, would have a specific parameter, Google parameter on there saying it was this direct mail piece from this campaign, and then I can go in Google Analytics and see that however many people got to the video, got to the landing page from that mail piece.
Yep. So I'm getting that the message for conversion is like the short stuff online is really like what gets people going. But I'm curious about like the full length video, like if you've seen that have more success with certain audiences and how you've seen it leveraged in a way that converts people. Because I'm imagining the short ads you're trying to drive to your donate page, so I guess like where do you find the sweet spot for leveraging that full length video?
Oh, I'm not sure if I'm answering this question. I'm just thinking through kind of the logic of our sort of approach was that we're really just trying to get people to, well, we're trying to get people to the website first of all. It's kind of that, and especially if we can retarget them, sort of like, we gotcha, you know, like we get you on our property, then we can retarget you, or maybe you'll take some other action, maybe you'll sign up for our e-newsletter, you know, like you'll become familiar with us. We hope they watch the full-length video and are interested enough to see the story. Now, we also posted, at least on the Minnesota Land Trust website, we also, because with Leighton, we had done a couple of sort of FAQ, very short FAQ videos. Like one is like, what's a conservation easement? Another one is, what's a land trust? You know, these are like really top of funnel, like it's a gross marketing word, but like the really top of funnel questions. So we just embedded those videos right on that landing page as well, because the idea is thinking through that sort of that prospects or that landowner's journey, that journey that they're going on is, we hope they see the display ad or the short ad and they get interested enough to just come to the landing page. And then we want to give them the next things that are going to be interesting to them. What's their next question? What's the next thing on their mind? And we're hoping that we've anticipated correctly and we're showing them and keeping them around, you know, and continuing to sort of educate.
Something else that wasn't anticipated, but that I end up using those videos for a lot, they're housed on YouTube, is I do a lot of community outreach, like tabling at community events and presenting to lake associations. And a lot of people, landowners, will come up and talk to me and want more information. I'll turn around and email them, and I'll link some of those videos that I think will answer their questions. So in addition to giving them just some brief information, I'll say, here's some videos you can watch, and here's a link to the landing page. And, you know, they might go to the landing page, they might just watch one of the videos that is answering the specific question they were asking me, but I've found that I've been using them and linking them a lot in emails one-on-one with landowners that I've talked to. So it's just a nice, it's a nice way to communicate with people.
All right, we probably have time for one more question. We'll go with Jennifer in the front.
I just wanted to say, I just want to share that I started using community television, which is especially for rural areas, it's a place where it's the cable companies paid. When you buy your cable bill, it funds a small community television. You definitely have one if you have cable in your area. And that's where I first learned how to use a camera. And it's not like broadcast quality, but if you just need like a person to show you, and then there's editing, and there's a little resources there, and it's in your community.
I love that.
That's where especially for rural places, but there's one in New York City, so.
We have one out where we are.
That's great. Thank you so much. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to stop by our booth. Like I said, you go out these doors, you take a left, and we're at the top of the stairs, big Leighton Media blue banner behind us. So what's next? All right, today we want you to visit our booth, or tomorrow. We'll be here all week. All right, this week what we want you to do is take that trail guide. There is a QR code on the back that will take you to the landing page with all of these presentation slides, examples of our video, our contact information, some great resources that Erica and the team has put together, an amazing white paper on what we learned about today. So there's lots of great stuff on there. The QR code that's showing up right here is the survey for the evaluation for our session today. We also have paper evaluation slips up front. They are blue if you want to grab one and let us know how we did so we can always improve. And then once you're back home, start to make a plan and then reach out for support.